The Australians take the field, and Hunt and Solomon are the opening batsmen for the West Indies. Left-arm fast bowler Alan Davidson will open the attack, and the Australians are hoping for a quick wicket before stumps. Davidson bowls the first ball of the innings to Conrad Hunt. Davidson bowls again, and the West Indies open their account as Hunt gets a single on the onside. Single brings Joe Solomon to face Davidson, and as he waits for the left-hander to bowl again, the slip field of Benno in the gully, Mackay third slip, Harvey second, Simpson first, and wicket-keeper Wally Grout wait expectantly for any chance that might come their way. They don't have to wait long for the anticipated chance. Davidson bowls the next ball to Solomon. A faint touch and the West Indies have lost their first wicket. Solomon out caught behind for no score, and at stumps on the first day, the West Indies, in reply to Australia's first innings total of 348, have lost 1 wicket for 1. It's another day of near-century heat in Melbourne as Seymour Nurse and Conrad Hunt, easily distinguished in his white sun hat, continue the West Indies innings. Nurse takes guard, and Alan Davidson will bowl the last ball of his unfinished over. There's almost a sensation first ball, but Davidson's appeal for LBW is disallowed, and Nurse lives to fight another day. At this moment, the shade temperature is 97 degrees, and the big crowd of just on 40,000 would like a cool change, and they'd also like to see Frank Misson bowl a successful first over in Test cricket. Misson's second ball. He's bowling to Conrad Hunt. An edge, Simpson dives at first slip, and Hunt is out for 1. Misson's teammates don't attempt to hide their delight at his early success, and at the fact that a class batsman like Hunt is on his way back to the pavilion. West Indies 2 for 1, Davidson and Misson each a wicket, and the brilliant Rowan Kanhai at the crease. Misson bowls again, and Kanhai is off the mark with a flashing square cut which brings him 3 runs to open his account. Kanhai scored a scintillating double century on this ground against Victoria 6 weeks ago, and looks to be set for another big score in this test match. When Nurse faces Misson, a shot to square leg brings a single, and this is unexpectedly increased to 5 when Martin's return to the bowler's end goes through for 4 overthrows. A pleasant change of luck for the West Indies after their early misfortune. Davidson again, and Nurse's shot into the covers is fielded by 12th man Klein, fielding substitute for the injured Mackay. Kanhai is obviously prepared to attack the bowling, and once he beats the close slip field, it's a fairly safe bet that umpire Hoy will eventually signal a boundary. Davidson is bowling with plenty of life, but Kanhai is in brilliant form, and his fluent off drive brings him another 3 runs. It's a great recovery by the West Indians and is fully appreciated by the suntan crowd. Misson continues bowling to 3 slips and 2 gullies, hoping for the batsman to find an edge, but with Kanhai almost everything is hit plumb in the middle. Nurse, on the other hand, is content to let the runs come, but he's playing an extremely useful innings for his side, and in Davidson's next over, a cut through the slips adds 4 to the score. Davidson's reply is not long in coming, but Nurse sees the bouncer all the way, and the fast left-arm bowler has Nurse playing him defensively during the remainder of the over. After 4 overs from the southern end, Misson gives way to Australian captain Richie Benno, and Kanhai watches the leg spinner carefully before attempting to play any of his strokes against him. Nurse, too, is quite content to treat Benno with respect, as the West Indies are still very much in the innings-building stages. After 50 minutes of play, Kanhai and Nurse have added 38, and the total stands at 2 for 39. Davidson bowls on in the scorching Melbourne sun, and Kanhai greets him with an equally scorching off-drive that burns its way over the green grass to the boundary. Lovers of cricket are loud in their praises of the superb stroke-making of Rohan Kanhai. When Davidson bowls again to Nurse, central figure is wicket-keeper Wally Grout, whose diving save adds to the interest of the morning's cricket. 12 eager hands wait for Seymour Nurse to make a rash stroke against Davidson, but Nurse just won't be tempted. As the field changes over and Benno bowls again to Kanhai, there's more action and more runs. Nurse tries to emulate his more dashing partner, but the single just isn't there. When Benno calls Johnny Martin into the attack to relieve Davidson, the move is greeted by a burst of applause from the enthusiastic crowd. Their enthusiasm matches that of Martin, spinning the ball from hand to hand in characteristic fashion and anxious to get on with the job. Martin's first ball in Test cricket is a good one. It must be when a batsman of the calibre of Kanhai is forced onto the defensive. But you can't keep a good batsman down, and Kanhai pulls Martin through mid-wicket, sending Richie Benno on a fruitless chase to the boundary. 4 more onto the West Indies total, and Kanhai's innings now in full flower. Kanhai square cuts again for a single, and another blemish in the otherwise excellent Australian fielding results in 1 overthrow. There's more excitement when Benno bowls and Nurse gives a semblance of a chance to Simpson at slip. It's still heatwave weather, but when light rain begins to fall and the crowd makes for shelter, it seems that the anticipated cool change is soon to become a reality. Nurse continues to play Benno circumspectly, but in typical West Indian fashion takes runs when they're offering. One of the highlights of the morning's play was Les Favell's returns from the outfield. But the highlight was the glorious batting of Rohan Kanhai. Irresistible batting like this from a man who came to the wicket when his side had lost 2 wickets to 1, chasing a total of 348. This boundary brings up Kanhai's 50 and makes the West Indies a much more respectable 2 for 80. Nurse is not so confident, but is giving Kanhai great support, and both batsmen score off Martin's next over. At this point, the applause is almost continuous, with both batsmen scoring off the spinners. Nurse's shot to deep mid-wicket gives McDonald a long chase, and his return from the deep is typical of the Australian out-cricket. 3 to Nurse brings Kanhai back, and while he's at the crease, the cricket's always lively. More evidence of the quality of the Australian fielding is provided when O'Neill's bullet-like return breaks the stumps. Martin again, and Kanhai hits him high over mid-wicket for 3 runs to bring up the West Indies 100 in little worse than even time. A great effort by Kanhai and Nurse, considering the position when they came together. Now the West Indies are at least an even chance in their chase after the Australian total. With Kanhai going after the runs, Nurse is doing a first-class job staying with him. In an effort to break the partnership, Benno brings Misson back into the attack, but Kanhai continues to score. One more onto the score when Nurse gets a late call from a Misson no ball and can't put it away. Misson's second spell sees him bowling with only 2 slips, and an accurate over ends with Nurse playing defensively. With lunch approaching, Benno brings leg spinner Bob Simpson into the attack in a further effort to break the partnership which has realised more than a century. That one should have landed in the Olympic stand. For the most part, Simpson bowls wide of the off stump, and his first over is a maiden. With the clock showing 1 minute to 1, the umpires decide on 1 more over before lunch, and in it Davidson almost ends the stand when he has Nurse playing at and missing an outswinger. Ever on the attack, Benno places himself and Martin close on the leg side in an attempt to entice Nurse, but the Australians can't take advantage of the move as Davidson bowls wide of the stumps. Nurse safely sees out the over from Davidson, and as the players leave the field for lunch, the West Indies score stands at 2 for 105, Kanhai on 69 and Nurse 33. During the lunch break, Melbourne's heat wave ends and down comes the rain. The ground staff is quick to apply the covers, and after a break of half an hour, play resumes with Benno bowling to Kanhai. As Martin fields, there's ample evidence of how slippery the rain has made the outfield. There's further incident when Kanhai deflects the ball to Simpson at slip. Benno seems to think it was a catch, but umpire Eager turns down the appeal, and Benno wastes no time in getting on with the game. With conditions made tricky by the damp conditions, the batsmen are on the defensive, and Davidson bowls a maiden over to Nurse. After removing some muddy turf from his boots, Benno continues the attack, and he too bowls a maiden, this time to Kanhai, an over highlighted by a superb return from the covers by Harvey, which breaks the stumps. Down comes the rain again, and after a signal from the umpires, the covers are again brought onto the ground for a second interruption, this time permanent, as the players race for cover. There's been only half an hour's play since lunch, and in that time, against some accurate bowling, Kanhai and Nurse have added only 3 runs. In the meantime, there's some comic relief for the crowd from the inevitable character who invariably appears on the scene to provide entertainment. Melbourne Cricket Ground curator Bill Watt isn't speedy enough to bring the offender to justice, and it's finally left to the law to take its own course. Helps to pass the time, but the rain continues and the umpires decide no more play is possible, with the West Indies 2 for 108, 240 runs behind the Australian total, with 8 wickets standing and 3 days to play. The match is evenly poised and all eyes are focused on Rohan Kanhai as he takes guard from umpire Hoy prior to facing the first ball of the morning from Alan Davidson. A straight drive to open the day's proceedings, and Kanhai's score goes to 72. For Alan Davidson, such treatment so early in the morning is harsh, but there's more to follow. There's no chance of stopping that one, and Kanhai takes 6 runs off Davidson's opening over. At the other end, with Richie Benno bowling, Seymour Nurse on 35 continues from where he left off on Saturday, playing each ball on its merits, picking up the odd single when it's offering. But Benno is bowling well, and Kanhai's innings is not all attack. The next over from Davidson is a mixture, but Nurse is equal to the occasion. Apart from Davidson's opening over to Kanhai, it's been a quiet beginning, with 7 runs being taken from the first 3 overs. But again in Benno's next over, Kanhai cuts loose with mixed fortunes. As usual, Neil Harvey's return brings applause from the tremendous crowd of 65,000, and there's more action in Davidson's next over when the left-hander tempts Kanhai to hook a short one and Harvey at cover accepts the easiest of chances. There's general regret that Kanhai didn't reach his 100, but his dismissal has swung the game Australia's way. Garfield Sobers appears for the first time on the Melbourne cricket ground before a crowd on tenterhooks to see his great deeds for themselves. But right from the start, the World Test record holder doesn't look in form, and before the day is over, he's destined to be dismissed twice for a total of 9 runs. In Benno's next over, Sobers is off the mark to mid-wicket and O'Neill, and Nurse too scores from Benno on the onside. Now watch Grout's lightning work behind the stumps as Benno beats Sobers' bat. It was a near thing, and Sobers is content to let discretion be the better part of valour for the remainder of the over. When Davidson bowls again, Nurse removes from storage his favourite off-drive, and when O'Neill fields, his enormous throw from just inside the boundary brings an outburst of wonder from the crowd as it reaches Grout on the full. Such treatment, according to Alan Davidson, should not go unpunished, and Seymour Nurse is the sufferer. Generally speaking, Davidson is giving a fine exhibition of controlled bowling, and the batsman can take few risks when he's on the job. Fellow all-rounder Australian skipper Richie Benno too is right on the spot. Just watch as he pins down one of the world's greatest batsmen, Garfield Sobers. The West Indies are battling to consolidate, and the first hour's cricket has produced only 29 runs for the loss of Kanhai's wicket. Misson returns to the attack and Nurse plays him with a mixture of strokes. Drinks spell the end of Sobers. He's out in Benno's next over attempting to cut when Simpson at slip takes a nicely judged catch. A disappointed Sobers out for 9, and the West Indies in real trouble with 4 down for 139, and captain Frank Worrell coming to the crease in an effort to stem the tide. Benno is bowling better than at any time during the innings, and Worrell is none too confident as he plays out the remainder of the over. Meanwhile, Nurse, proving to be the sheet anchor of the West Indies innings, continues to play the bowling at least as confidently as some of his more illustrious partners, and the enthusiastic Johnny Martin comes in for plenty of work at square leg. On the other hand, Worrell doesn't seem to be able to gauge the pace of the pitch, and it's no surprise when he cuts Misson onto his stumps and is out without scoring. A disastrous blow for the West Indies, but a great moment for Frank Misson in his first test. Half the side out and the visitors still 206 behind, with Vice-Captain Jerry Alexander following his skipper to the wicket. Alexander's quickly off the mark, and the general feeling is that while he's still there with Nurse, all is not lost. Benno again, and after a quick single to Alexander, Nurse on 49 has the strike. A dogged 50 to Seymour Nurse, a half-century fully appreciated by the huge crowd of 65,000. "41 runs in a hard-fought 90 minutes cricket, but with bowling and fielding of this standard, little more can be expected. As lunch approaches, Alan Davidson is still bowling on in a great spell, and in this over he strikes another blow for Australia when he forces Alexander into edging him to second slip where Les Favell holds a sharp chance. It's a great performance by Davidson, and as the players leave the field for lunch, the West Indies are 6 for 160, with Sonny Ramadan to come in after lunch. A good rest, and Davidson is back on the job after lunch bowling to Ramadan. Although Ramadan has been promoted in the batting order since he last visited this country, he's facing Davidson at his best, and he's out when Davidson knocks back his leg stump. Ramadan out without scoring, and the West Indies now 7 for 160. Davidson 4 for 38 and Nissen 2 for 36. Wes Hall is next in, and much to the delight of everyone, he wastes no time in cracking Davidson through the slips for a speedily run 3. When Davidson bowls again, Nurse has another life, as Simpson makes a terrific effort to catch him at first slip. Now let's watch Wesley Hall, the crowd pleaser, as he faces Benno. When Hall's batting, there's always something doing, whether it's running between wickets, an exaggerated defensive stroke, or an appeal for LBW. There's no doubting the popularity of Wesley Hall, and this seems to apply equally to the players as well as to the cricketing public. Seymour Nurse continues to play a mixture of shots, but for the present his luck holds. Not so Wesley Hall. A huge swing, and then bowled neck and crop by Davidson, with Martin smartly catching the ball. Hall out for 5, the West Indies 8 for 166, and Alan Davidson's 5th wicket. Hall is replaced by his fast bowling partner Chester Watson, and Benno continues the attack to Nurse. Nurse has decided the time has come to attack, but he still can't put Benno away. As the West Indies players watch from their dressing room, they see the 9th wicket fall when Nurse is caught behind off Davidson. A wonderfully courageous and patient innings of 70, during which Nurse was at the wicket for over 5 hours. West Indies 9 for 177.